back side of our tool. And this is an exclamation point. We like to be colorful and stand out at the Alliance. And this side of the tool came long after the question mark side. We muddled around for a while wondering, what can we put on the back of this tool about the top 10 questions? And it come to us. We need a tool that helps extend that partnership that the front side talks about, a real way to partner together in doing the work. And so we took that paper that Victoria was talking about, the Building and Sustaining Effective Parent Partnerships, and dove into those four categories that Robin speaks of in her paper. And we made questions surrounding each one of those stages. And the great thing about this tool is on the left side is a place for parent partners to write their answers or their thoughts or the things they come up with. And on the right side is a place for organizational partners to do the same thing. You can use this tool in various different ways. You can facilitate a large conversation, or you can have a very small one-on-one with a parent partner. You can take the tool and do a little self-reflection and then come back together and show both sides of the fence and really communicate exactly where you're coming from. It's a really great tool to tell your story about where you're coming from on your side of the things. So let's dive in a little deeper. The first section of this paper or this tool is from the paper, and it's the Getting to Know You section. What do you want to learn to know or feel about being part of our team? What new skills are you excited about as we work together? What is the story that brings you here today? I was very inspired in the opening session when they were talking about the ACEs and they were saying, what's your number? What's your story? And she said, we all have a story. That's very true. So what's the story that brings you here today? Why do you feel like it's important to partner? Why do you want to make a change? And how might you benefit from participation? So it's really like the first date. You're real excited, you want to get to know each other more, and you don't kind of know exactly what questions to ask. You just know that you're ready to dive in and be there, and you're a little scared. So this particular part of the paper gets those little jitters out and gets you to know a little bit more about each other. The second section of this tool is about working together. What do you value about being together? What do you like about a team? Particularly, what strengths do you bring to the team? We like to talk a lot about building protective factors and acknowledging strengths and where people are strong. And each person in a team has a specific thing that they're really good at. Now, we don't always like to talk about ourselves, but this question gets to the root of, even if you don't know exactly what your strengths are, you start to ask yourself, well, what can I bring to the team? What makes me a good partner? Why would you want to partner with me? Starts getting you digging deeper, thinking about that as a teammate. And you'll see here that we have circled each section that corresponds with the number of questions there. The third part is about building community. So you've got to know each other. You know what it looks like to be a teammate and work together. And now you're ready to take it and dig deeper into your community. This is where you start to dream. In your wildest dreams, what kind of changes would we see if we were successful with what we want to see happen? How can we work towards that together? What are specific things that I can do and you can do to make this happen? No dream is too big. It doesn't always mean that you're going to achieve that, but it gives you something to work forward to. That North Star, like Victoria was talking about with the Building and Sustaining Effective Partnerships paper. What can you contribute to your team? And the last stage is mentoring others. So you've come together, you've got to know each other, you've talked about what it looks like as a team, you've dreamed a big dream, and you put it into action. And as you start to put it into action, you need to know, who else can we invite to the table? Who else might be interested in helping us make this dream happen? Look at each bold step and break it down into smaller pieces, into action steps to make that dream achievable. So what I really love about this tool the most is that it is very versatile in its use. Like I said, you can use it in large settings, smaller settings. I have used this also as a parent with other parents. So I know it says parent partners on one side and organizational partners on one side, but I have used it with one-on-ones in my own parenting peer-to-peer support group. I have also used it as a professional in team building. So we find that our tools are very versatile and you can change the language or the questions to help you meet your needs. So as I said, we do a lot of protective factor work, we do a lot of relationship building, and we do a lot of tools made for parents by parents. And we hope that organizations will also use those to build connections and relationships with parents. And specifically, we have a lot of one-pagers that are related to the protective factors. And now Victoria is going to dive in and teach you a little bit more about those.
Thank you very much, Lucretia. As you said, we do like to dive into things and expand upon them. So the idea behind these one-pagers, as we call them, or these infographics, is that they're really parent-to-parent singular conversations. So it's a series of tools that the ANPPC started creating to expand upon the understanding of protective factors in the logic model. So you could make it more digestible to organizations and parents alike. We focused on strengths of parents and caregivers and what they're already doing to show that it is not only possible, but attainable to incorporate the protective factors into everyday life. Now, the first three that we created were parental resilience, knowledge of parenting and child development, and then we dove into social connections. And we considered many different factors when we were making these. And to create them, we conducted so many surveys. Lucretia said that we surveyed for, we surveyed the members of the Alliance. We could see how they partner. We survey. But we really want to know what actually works. And we want to hear those responses from actual people in day-to-day life that maybe aren't thinking about the protective factors logic model, right? So they're not thinking about it as they go about their day-to-day, but what they're doing does apply to the day-to-day. And that's really where the ANPPC shines, is that we take these somewhat complex ideas, this strengthening families protective factors logic model, which is kind of a mouthful if you're telling it to somebody who isn't aware that it exists. And we turn it into something that's easy to digest. So for example, we link those everyday actions in the logic model, and we create a question that's very easy to answer. As you see right now, what are some ways your community, and then we have some examples of what community might be, demonstrates it values parents. And then we have actual responses from people. So that's a very simple way of connecting it to the everyday action, which is demonstrate in multiple ways that parents are valued. And so thinking about it from a personal perspective, how do I feel valued? When do I know that I feel valued? And connecting it to that logic model. Each everyday action is numbered, and each number of the questions that we asked and the answers we received corresponds correctly. Each graphic was considered to be welcoming, opening, very relatable. We wanted to be diverse and inclusive. We wanted to make these one-pagers, these infographics, easily read so that it's not difficult to process. We also didn't want a wall of text so people just shut off when they start to read it. We wanted it to be engaging. Now, after we created the first three, we kind of went off and did a few other tools and projects, but we came back and now we can say that we have finished all 5 and we have completed this suite of parent-to-parent infographics. And again, we're just parent strategies on how they use strength-based protective factors in their everyday lives. Now, when it came to concrete support in times of need, we actually got so many wonderful examples that we actually created an entirely new page that we hadn't thought we would need. And it's a supplement, which you see on the left-hand side with the little voice bubbles. And that document really is very specific to the realization that we had when we got the responses to our survey. And that is that the real life scenarios that made the biggest difference is when someone just showed up. It wasn't necessarily something huge that they did, like $1 million. That would be wonderful. But what really made the difference was them physically just showing up for that person. And that's what really made the difference. And so we felt that deserved its own special place. Now, in terms of use, Lucretia said our tools are very versatile. You can use them for lots of different things. And that's the same is true for these infographics. The members of the ANPPC came up with a few examples of how you might use them, but there are so many more. So please don't let our examples stop you from using them in a different way. A few examples for you. The tools can be used as a conversation starter at community or parent cafes. They can be used to explain the logic model or explain the protective factors and how they work together. They can be used by asking parents the very same questions that we asked. As you see right now, can you share any tools or specific activities that you use when you talk to your children about their emotions? It's a very relatable question, and I'm sure there are many tools that many different parents use. We list some here. But that can give you some clue as to where the parents are at in terms of their engagement and their understanding of emotions and how to talk to their children about them. So it's a really good way to, kind of guide your interactions. If you're working with someone that maybe needs an illustration on how these small but significant actions can really make a difference, and how families show that they're committed and involved to making their family strong, then you can use these as examples of this is what these are ways that parents and families engage with their kids. And these are ways that they use the protective factors. Another way that you can use this tool is as an example, or to give you ideas of activities that you can do between organizations and parents to partner and present to your community. So we encourage you to use them in these ways and many, many, many more. Now, each infographic has its own social media meme that we have created for you. And we pulled out specific pieces of the infographic, the image, an encouraging key takeaway. And we just made a little picture, and they're all available on the website. And we find that it makes it so much easier to promote these tools and to help anyone understand how to use them. Now, on the flip side of these infographics, we have our little clipboard. And this clipboard, I love this clipboard, and it shows up in so many of our tools because it makes it so easy to see how the protective factors connect to one another. And we include that on there because we want everyone to understand that there's no single protective factor that builds up strong families. They all work together. And so we've included this on the back to help guide that work in connecting the dots between each individual protective factor. Additionally, on the back of each one, we've included actual quotes from parents in different states to get a wide, range of answers on what these protective factors mean for them, or the difference that building these protective factors had on their families or themselves, which is a huge, help when you're working with families, is to know, how did this change your life? How did this make a difference? How do you feel after learning this? And so we've given you some answers there. Now, ultimately, a single protective factor alone doesn't necessarily prevent child abuse and neglect, but it does contribute to it. But we really want to emphasize that when the 5 protective factors are together, they really do make your family strong. And we represent that by this tree in the background behind this mother reading to her child. And, so we have the parental resilience, we have the knowledge of parenting and child development, we have the social connections, we have the concrete support in times of need, and we have the social and emotional competence of children. Now, I mentioned before that while we were surveying parents like crazy trying to get these tools done, we kind of took a step back and we worked on some other tools and tried to mix it up a little bit. And Lucretia is going to tell you a little bit about those tools.
Yeah, so as we were making those one-pagers for the protective factors, we got to number 4, which was this one, social emotional competence of children. And we were like, oh my gosh, we can't survey people one more time. Like, not the original way we were surveying. Like, we needed to get really creative about it because we still wanted that really rich data and feedback of how folks were building their protective factors in everyday life. And we still wanted to take the logic model and create questions that got at that in a different way. But it was important to us that we just changed up the way that we did it. Also, in our experience, when we talk about building social emotional competence in children, we find that folks would rather just have a conversation about it, right? Instead of answering questions, we want to talk about what are the things that we notice when children are building their social and emotional capacity. What are the things that parents need to take into account? What does that look like together? And for me, quite honestly, I needed to know as a parent a little bit more about my social emotional competence, how I dealt with things before I was able to help my child. And so this conversation guide is something that we developed out of all of that, taking it in. And what I really like about it is about really looking at the way that parents and caregivers help build this protective factor. It provides all of the resources that we need to convene an informal and really focused conversation. It is designed to be led by a parent facilitator and co-facilitator from an organization, but you also can do it on your own if you like. There are 5 questions that form the basis of the discussion guide, and they relate back to those everyday actions from the logic model that are known to build the social emotional competence of children. But the real power of this conversation tool is that local conversations become part of a national conversation. With these essential tools, we can find out what's going on in local communities and how you are doing this in your community and combine it all together so that we're getting answers from your community and putting it out there on a national level. These are how parents in Arkansas are building protective factors. These are how parents in West Virginia or Washington State are building protective factors. It comes complete with a conversation guide that has directions on how to use it. It has key points and reminders. It has directions on how to process the conversation and share the great things that you're doing in your community with us. It also has a report out form. It even has consent forms for you to ask folks if you're allowed to share the data that they share with you. Of course, we never want you to share anything that's confidential outside of what families would want to share, so we make sure we have that consent form in there for you as well. And we also have a PowerPoint. So this suite is available to you on our website. And what I really loved about it, one of the coolest things I thought that we took into consideration was, folks are busy and you may be working with folks and you might have 2 hours or you might have 60 minutes or 90 minutes or 30 minutes. What does that look like? How can you use this in various different platforms? So we took the conversation guide and we broke it down into a time plan. And there are step-by-step instructions here and what it might look like if you only had a few minutes. Also, as you dive into the facilitator's conversation part of the guide, it is color-coded based on the time plan so that you are making sure you're covering all those key points that you want to cover. to get to the root of how families are building this protective factor in your community. And of course, everything that we do relates back to that logic model. I know we keep coming back to it, but it is what drives the work. And you'll see there that the results are strengthened families, optimal childhood development, and the reduction of child abuse and neglect. And that's what we really want, right? That's what strong families are, is prevention from the start, primary prevention. And every one of our questions does relate back to those everyday actions that we know build the protective factor. And then again, inside of your packet, here are the questions, and there is the logic model piece. And there's a place for you to record any small little nuggets of things that you find along the way that's important to you. We hope that you will use that conversation guide and many more of our tools to help learn how you're building protective factors in your community. Speaking of more conversation guides, COVID-19, right? It came, we thought it was leaving. It's kind of here to stay. We don't really know. And so we want to be prepared for whatever that looks like for our new normal. So when COVID-19 first happened, and we realized within the first month it's not going anywhere for a little while, the ANPPC really wanted to spring into action. We like to do things sometimes based on real life events, right? We want to know how you're building protective factors in the face of adversity, in times of a pandemic, normal ways, crazy ways. We want to know all the ways. And so we really felt it was important for us to jump straight into action when the pandemic hit. And we really wanted to know how folks are building protective factors in the face of COVID, in a time when we were made to be socially distant and connection was more important than ever. We sprung into action and made this conversation guide called Conversations for a Better Normal. And it is particularly focused on how you are building protective factors during the pandemic. It too has a suite of a facilitator guide, just like the social emotional competence conversation guide. It has a participants guide. It has a PowerPoint as well, all of the things that you need to use it in various ways and adapt it to your audience. Now you can focus on a specific protective factor. You'll see here that this is the parental resilience page. There are 5 questions related to the everyday actions, and we've connected the 2 there with the clipboard. Also on each form, you can click the complete the Google form here, because again, we want to know, how are you doing this in your community? What does it look like across the nation? How are families building these protective factors during the pandemic? I've used this in various different ways. So when I've had a community meeting virtually, and we wanted to talk about how we're building our resilience, we have taken this and broken it out into breakout rooms with 1 question per breakout room. We've taken the tool and used it in larger sessions. I've also taken 1 question and used it as an icebreaker in a meeting with my colleagues. So what are some ways that parents are being valued in your community during crisis? Is the first question. But what that really looks like as an icebreaker is, what's the kindest thing that someone's done for you in your community during COVID? So I don't want you to think that like this has to be some long process. You can take 1 question as an icebreaker, and by asking that question, everybody has something nice that someone's done for them in their community, whether it's been for them or their neighbor, and you will get tons and tons and tons of answers. And when you have those wonderful things that are happening in your community and you share them with the Google form, it becomes part of the national data to show how strong communities are, how people are building this through the pandemic. I also want to encourage you that although this was made specifically for building protective factors during COVID, you can change the questions up. Right? So you can say, we've been in the pandemic for a while, or don't even say the word pandemic. Like, what's the nicest thing someone in your community's done for you lately? How can you encourage other people to deal with stress effectively? So you don't have to use this specifically just for COVID, but it is another tool yet to show how families are building protective factors. We are in the process of taking this tool and making it making some of the questions malleable and building a conversation guide for conversations for stronger communities. So I know we have a lot of tools, bear with us, we have even more. And honestly, even though we're going to talk to you about a lot of them today, there are more that we are not going to discuss. But we know that we've mentioned social media and that has become very important, very important way to stay connected during the pandemic. And even when you're not, you know, especially parents, and I won't say my age or date myself, I don't feel that I'm old, but I'm also not the youngest chicken in the hen house. And so when I'm working with parents who are younger than I am, I find that they really love to tweet or, you know, do something on Facebook or some kind of image, something really quick to catch their attention, Instagram, different things like that. And so we have a whole social media campaign dedicated to achieving that goal, if that's what you're interested in. There is a campaign specifically surrounding resilience. And although it did start out as building your resilience during COVID-19 and how to bounce back from negative experiences and be transformed, it is so much more than that. It consists of 12 images that are linked to resources that families can use to actually actively build resilience. And it's really great. You know, one of the things that I focus on as a parent is like, I really love that silver lining of having my kids home, especially in the beginning. And I don't know if you've seen those memes where it's like, beginning of pandemic, you're going to get healthy, you're going to do a juice cleanse, you're going to organize your closet. And then it's like day 54, you're like, oh my gosh, what am I thinking? My closet's a mess. I didn't organize anything. And so you just kind of like, you know, try to find those ways to build your resilience all along the way. But for me, it was, how am I going to be a great model for my kids? How am I going to build that resilience? Because those little eyes are looking at me all the time. So this particular campaign for myself helped in helping me fill my parent cup, my mommy cup, my caregiver cup, my partner cup. You know, how did I build my own resilience so that I'm able to be better and be present for my family? We also have the Protective Factors campaign that focuses on highlighting a different protective factor each week. So it goes through all 5 of those protective factors each week. That one's a really nice one. And then there are the HERO campaigns. So the HERO campaign started out in National Parent Leadership Month of February, where we really wanted to highlight heroes, the healthy, empowering response to opportunity. And that led over into April, and we made 2 of those campaigns. So I know that we have talked about a lot of our tools, and you're probably thinking, where can I find all these? I know you put the link in the chat box and different things like that, but what does it really look like? So I'm going to show you on our website what it actually looks like. So when you go to ctfalliance.org, this is what you will see. And at the very top, there is a thing that says menu or a parent voice. Either way, you can get to some of our materials. If you click menu, you will see partnering with parents. And if you click that, it will take you to the main page where it shows all of the ways that we partner with parents through the Children's Trust Fund Alliance. You'll see that paper there from Robin Higa. You'll see one of our rock stars, Roger Sherman. Hey, Roger, if you're out there in the audience today, he's the Children's Trust Fund Director of Idaho. You'll see that the Alliance partners with several different parent bodies, and they support a lot of parent work, not just the ANPPC. But what sets the ANPPC out from the other parent bodies is that our focus is on primary prevention before child abuse and neglect ever occurs. And you scroll on down here, you can find some other things as well, but I wanted you to know that's where that paper is. So you can either go back to the top at the menu and select from here the ANPPC or the Parent Voice page, or you can also click right here on this gray tab, ANPPC. It will take you to our ANPPC page. Hi, everybody. There's our whole council at our last annual meeting. And as you start to scroll down, you'll see a little bit about our members, who we are. And then you get to the need to know parent resources. This is where you can find those one-pager infographics. And I will tell you that the majority of all of our tools, except for the last two one-pagers that we just finished, are available in Spanish and English, including the conversation guide, the Conversations for a Better Normal, the acrostic tool, effective parent partnerships tool. All of those are available in Spanish and English. And here's where you can download that conversation guide. And it has all three components. Here are the images linking to those protective factor infographics: parental resilience, social connections, knowledge of parenting and child development, concrete support in times of need, social emotional competence. And you continue to scroll on down. Here's our parent acrostic tool and all of those images that go along with the acronym of parents. You click on those, they become readily available. You can download them. And then you get down here to the bottom, and here's our social media campaign. I'm going to click on the Hero campaign for Parent Leadership Month and just show you what it looks like. So here is everything that you can download related to the social media campaign for Parent Leadership Month, but you don't have to use it just for Parent Leadership Month. That's the greatest thing about the Hero work. And now I'm going to turn it to Victoria to tell you a little bit more about that Hero work, but I just wanted you to know what it looked like in real life and where you can find those things.
All right, thanks, Lucretia. So healthy, empowering response to opportunity. That's the Hero campaign. And as Lucretia said, February is National Parent Leadership Month, and it is a time that's dedicated to recognizing the important roles that parents and families have in raising their kids and having healthy and happy homes. So this year, we really wanted to highlight their heroic efforts and keeping families strong during 2020. You know, there's a lot of talk about who the real heroes are, and that ANPPC believes that, you know, parents are heroes, and they should be highlighted for that. So we wanted to bring attention to the healthy ways that we can respond to opportunities that things like the pandemic or crisis can present. So this certificate, as you see with the little child on the Zoom call, that's actually a child of one of our former trust fund directors from Tennessee, or granddaughter, excuse me. And it just encapsulates what a lot of parents experienced during 2020 and even some of 2021. So this was and is a downloadable form that you can fill in the PDF, and you can customize it and add your own logo and really elevate the parent leaders in your community. So we want to provide that opportunity. The Alliance has been creating these certificates for a few years now, but we really wanted to get the word out there that we had it. And so we created a social media campaign based around this concept of these healthy, empowering responses to opportunity. So when we did that, the social media memes not only provided something eye-worthy and grabbing to get your attention, but they also provided resources on ways that we could continue to be heroes for our children. And it was so successful, and we had so many people engage with those memes and the certificate that we decided to continue on with the Hero campaign. And we created these toolkits, as you see here, the little toolbox. And these toolkits were for National Child Abuse Prevention Month in the month of April. And it was to, raise awareness about abuse, neglect, mistreatment, all of those types of things, and how we can prevent it, right? We really want to help build strengthening families' protective factors in all families. So we created these toolkits that included downloadable activities, printables, videos, further reading for parents. And the great news is that we're going to be doing a deeper dive on this on Thursday. Another member of the ANPPC and I, Kara Georgette, who's actually here with us today as a guest, her and I will be presenting on Thursday, 2 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, 4 p.m. Central Standard Time, and 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And as you can see here, again, we were very intentional with making sure that the individuals that we wanted to represent as heroes were diverse and inclusive, because not all families look the same, just as the same as not all families need the same tools. Each family has its own toolbox that works for them. And some of another family's tools might work for my family, and some of them might not. So it's just that acknowledgement of the diversity in families. So please join us on Thursday as we dive deeper into there. And I just want to, as we kind of close up a little bit here, I wanted to encourage you to stay connected. The Alliance has an Instagram. It's listed there. Please go ahead and follow us there if you're on social media, on the Instagram. And then they also have a Facebook. So please like and follow us on there as well. Anything that the ANPPC creates, and at all, any of our tools, we will create and post about them on our social media. So if you're following us, you'll hear about it first. So please stay tuned there and stay connected.
We really thank you guys for spending your time with us today. And I know that you have probably some questions, and maybe not right now, but you might have them later. We hope that you will use our tools in various ways to build protective factors and strengthen your communities in your own neighborhoods. And we hope that as you do that, you will share with us what you're finding, build strong families, what your communities are saying works for them. If you are interested in partnering more with the ANPPC or working together or any of the other parent bodies, if you're more interested in strengthening families and taking the protective factors, maybe the online training or in-person training, we have a lot of things surrounding child abuse and neglect and training there as well. Anything that you just might want to partner with or have a larger conversation about, I encourage you to contact Martha Reeder. She is the Senior Associate with the Children's Trust Fund Alliance, and her email is there. And she is a direct link to us as parents. And so we're happy to work with you in any way possible. I really hope that you take our tools and just use them a lot and use them in your own ways and tailor them to your own needs. And so that's all for us today. We're happy to take any questions that might be in the chat box. I can't see that. Would our moderator please help us?
Yeah, so folks, if you have questions, go ahead and put them in the chat feature in the actual conference platform. I think I didn't realize not everyone can see the chat within the Zoom. I see a lot of great chatter that happened during the conversation, but I don't see any questions. So like I said, feel free to put them into the chat function. You may be also just able to unmute yourselves and ask the question that way if you want. So feel free to do either. You can also connect with our speakers throughout the conference later as well. Obviously, I think there's ways for everyone to swap contact information. Thank you to both of our speakers. I think we'll hang on here for a minute and see if anyone puts in a question. I also put in a link to a very brief survey that you all can fill out in the platform chat, just to give some feedback to our speakers and to all of us on the session as well. I'll scroll back up, make sure I didn't miss any questions.
In addition to Victoria and Kara's session tomorrow about those toolkits, Tara will be working to do a session as well on the birth and foster parent partnership, and they have a nice toolkit to use there as well if that's something that interests you. They really dive into cultivating parent partnerships together there.
All right, last call. Anyone have any questions for our speakers?
I will stop share here. You guys can always reach out to us or Martha if you would like to know more about partnering together. Thank you guys for your time
All
today.
right, thanks.
Enjoy the rest of
All
the
right.
conference.
Yeah, have fun. Thanks again for joining us today.
Bye, everyone.